hit the record button, and we're good to go.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. I'm afraid my presentation is more about the digital transformation and not necessarily on the topic of efficiency and effectiveness, more that as we implement digital transformation, the reason why we do it is to be efficient and effective, and also just to stay in touch with the current market conditions. Now, as Paul said, productivity does go up and down, and there are a lot of society-wide implications to effectiveness and efficiency that we haven't quite grappled into. Like, we're only now starting this discussion around, do we need a 5-day work week, or is it better to have 3 or 4-day work week? Well, the reason we have a 5-day work week at the moment is that historically technology improvements have been so that we can now work jobs that allow us to have 5-day work weeks. To put it bluntly, cows don't care that it's Sunday. So if you're a farmer, you're working 7 days a week. I hope that's self-evident to everybody. But yeah, so to get stuck into my presentation, what we're going to be covering today is what is digital transformation, which is what the process we are using to achieve effectiveness and efficiency in business, and why do businesses resist? Because why is there a dip in productivity even though there's like technology out there to do anything we want? What are the digital steps to digital transformation, and what is life like after digital transformation? And then I'll open up with questions, but I want to say that if you have questions while I'm doing my presentation, please feel free to jump in, because it's always better to have an interactive session than me just lecturing you guys. So yeah, so please use the chat feature to do that. So but before we get into the presentation, where am I coming from? So I started life as a research engineer, and then I went into enterprise development, but I went back to academia to do my PhD and postdoc. And at some point, all I really wanted to do was find a way to fund further research and further things. But that's when I actually, one of my friends, who is the CEO of Shorthand now, he sort of said, hey, look, your research has always been more applied. So instead of chasing research funding, why don't you just do a startup? So I entered startup land purely to work on my own ideas, to get my own ideas off the ground. But I quickly discovered that there was a niche for my skill set, where you have people who need technical bridges, a tech person on their side, because they approach startups as domain experts. But to implement their ideas, they have a very strong tech element. So but because they're not tech experts, they need somebody on their side to help them. So that's what I do in startup land. So I am the consultant CTO to Josari, which is a micro advice marketplace. I'm the CTO of Kaiko. That's a consumer collective. We will be launching Marketing Blitz later this year, so keep an eye out for that. And I've recently joined Sports Smart, which is a recently started after school program, and we're only at one school but rapidly expanding. But as I said, I did come into startup land to work on my own ideas. So I was the co-founder of Abide, which is a prop tech startup, but that's sort of gone into a permanent pause because co-founder wasn't in a place to pursue it further, and I didn't want to do it by myself. But connections and technology connections I've made in Abide have led to me becoming the co-founder of Housey, which is another prop tech startup. So that's what I'm doing for myself at the moment, and I'm also working with the fashion small business, Sharka Bosakova, which is like a Brisbane brand for sustainable jewelry and just clothing in general. So that's my background. So I am very much about bringing the tech solutions to domain experts, and just helping domain experts and business founders just navigate the technical space. And a lot of that navigation, especially for small businesses like Sharka, can be about transforming what existing infrastructures and existing business models so they become more competitive and just get more, just have a firmer footing as we go into the future. So what is digital transformation? And well, basically, it's about integrating digital technology into all areas of business fundamentals and changing how you operate and deliver value to your customers. People usually do it because they need process improvements. They are being crushed under admin burdens. So their website is no longer working. They might also be looking for new revenue streams. A good one I heard from the restaurant industry is that a lot of restaurant industries before COVID who were not doing deliveries, partly because they were worried about food quality or quality of their service, ended up pretty much being forced to develop solutions that meant that they could get their food to their customers in an acceptable quality during COVID because they had no choice. So that's now become a new revenue stream for them going forward, even as restaurants are opening and so forth. And a lot of it is also future-proofing business because, if sometimes with digital transformation, it can be a question of, hey, we needed to start this 5 years ago. So, so that's another driver. And also customer experiences change. Like if you don't exist on Google, you don't exist for many customers today. So, you can resist not having a website, but your customers will just find somebody who does offer them their service the way they want it. So, yeah. And also, I don't want to think about digital transformation is about existing businesses changing, but if you're a new business and you're starting off, you can lose a lot of your lean advantage that they say about startups if your foundation is weak. Like if you haven't put in proper systems for growth, then when you grow, you're suddenly in the same position as your legacy companies because you don't have the foundations or the technological processes or the operational processes to grow. So new businesses might not be transforming, but they need to be thinking about the future-proofing aspect of the planning as well. Now, I want to. So this is. I wanted to give this picture as a sign of what I meant by this whole digital transformation thing, because this picture is of Nishiyama Onsen Kaiken. It is a 1,300-year-old hotel and is the world's oldest hotel. And the screenshot you're seeing is from their website. Now, and according to Wikipedia, if you go to this 1,300-year-old hotel today, you can get Wi-Fi in every room. And obviously, these guys have gone through a lot of refurbishments and everything. And but the fact that, but it sort of shows you how a hotel like this can last 1,000 years. They have clearly changed with time, and they have, and while there are probably things that they haven't changed in 1,000 years, like the quality of their service, but there are also other things they have changed, including putting Wi-Fi in their rooms, because people don't necessarily want to disconnect when they visit this onsen now. So I don't know if any of our businesses will last 1,000 years, but I think this is like a good way of thinking about it, is that if you want to last well into the future, it's, you have to change with the time, because I am fairly certain this hotel, this onsen didn't look like this 1,000 years ago, if that makes sense. But then the question becomes, why do businesses resist? So now this graph, I was actually just looking for a graph that showed like the time commitments up ahead for the digital transformation, but I found this graph while I was looking for it, and I think this is like a better graph that shows the ups and down as you're going through this digitization process, because it can cost a lot of money and time up front. So it is always easy to say, look, it's not broken, why are we fixing it? Well, it could possibly be that by the time you want to try and fix it, it's too late. So Kodak, Blockbuster, these are big companies we know that failed to keep step with changing times. And it's not that they didn't know that the change was coming. Kodak was the first, famously were the first to develop the digital camera, but they suppressed it internally because they're like, well, our moneymaker is the film, so we have to keep selling film. But it's kind of seems obvious in hindsight that if you develop the digital camera, so could your competitors. So why would they not release the digital camera? But Kodak didn't. But I have heard that Kodak has come back as a chemicals company, so good on Kodak. But there was a lot of pain for Kodak, because they were like, well, it's not broken, why do you fix it? Well, it might not be broken, but that doesn't mean it can take you into the future. So there's cultural resistance, and cultural resistance was why Kodak and others, and Blockbuster even, were resistant to change. And also the pure fact is that technology is not the silver bullet that will kill all our problems. So if you go into the peak of inflated expectations and you're like, oh, this is going to solve all our problem, and you suddenly realize it won't, you go into disillusionment, and it's like, why am I spending so much time and money doing this? This is actually making things longer. I'm actually having this problem with my client in SportsMart, where a lot of the time he's struggling with the new processes, so he's often like, let's go on to something else, or let's drop this and go something else. And it's like, well, no, we need to get the processes right, because yes, it's frustrating now, but you cannot grow beyond the first school if we don't get these right. So let's stick with it and keep going so that we can reach the next plateau of productivity. And look, there is a reason why, despite all the CIOs, CTOs, CEOs who are paid ludicrous amounts of money to implement change management and do digital transformation, the biggest driver of digital transformation ended up being COVID-19, because sometimes you need an external shock to get you moving. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So what's the digital transformation steps? Now, if you do even a little bit of a cursory research on digital transformation, you get like different number of steps, like 21 steps to digital transformation, 5 steps to digital transformation, 7 steps to digital transformation. Well, yeah, that you can break down the process into multiple stages and multiple steps, but all of them start with people. If you don't have like, if you, even if it's just you as a solo founder or a business owner, you need commitment. Not just from you need commitment because this is a difficult process and it will consume a lot of time beforehand. So, but if you have employees, you definitely need buy-in, and if you have like a partner, you can't, nothing will proceed, and the process will be much more difficult and not lead to a plateau of productivity if you don't have the people on board. So you need the people on board. And you need to know your current state before you're transforming, and you need to identify and prioritize. So this is prioritization is where a lot of digital transformation steps start talking about slogans and what your vision is. A lot of it feels like corporate speak to, you just need a plan. You need to know, you need to have a clear goal that you want to reach, because it's really, really easy to get lost in engineering waffles and just go down technological rabbit holes, and then but not actually achieve anything, you know. And you also need to identify resources you need, collect data. Data is very important because digital transformation should be data driven. It's not about your guts. It's not about what feels right. Although that can be part of it, especially when you're talking about digital transformation that's customer facing. You should know your customer well enough to know how the change will be received by them long term. Now, short term, everybody hates change, right? So you know, short term, there's usually always a backlash, but you need to know, is that just, oh my God, why are you changing this? It was working fine. Why do I have to learn where the button is now? Or if you actually screwed up something big time. So, you know, so it's not that you need, but so you need to collect data, and yeah, your intuition and your experience should inform how you interpret the data, but the data should be what leads the way. And then you basically finalize your digital transformation plan, include measurable key performance indicators. Now, this is very important, and this is something that people often leave out. But if you're not measuring anything, you don't know if you've done the right thing or not, and you can't iterate or go into a maintenance phase. Now, iterate just means you just tweak the processes and systems to achieve a better KPI, but at some point you will reach a maintenance phase where you're like, okay, I like the processes as it is, and it's not that the iteration stop, the iteration cycle just becomes longer. So instead of rapidly changing to get your digital strategy right, you basically go into, it's more a review. Am I still at the cutting edge, or so forth. So so as I've already talked about this bit, but it's basically, what's your transformation is time consuming. So what I was talking about, and I didn't want to say too much in the last screen because I knew the screen was coming, is that even if you're a solo operator, you may need to negotiate with other people in your life who have a stake in your time. So your partner, kids, friends and family in general, because if you're already working 40 hours a week or more, then you have to go, where is the time going to come that I need as a solo business operator to implement digital transformation? And that's something you have to plan out and possibly negotiate. And you can go, hey, honey, for the next 6 weeks, I need to work Saturdays, but I promise that after 6 weeks, I will have less admin to do during the week. So I'll less, something like that. But also, the other thing about stakeholder buy-in is to figure out who is benefiting from your inefficiency. Do you have a position that you're going to be eliminating as part of your digital transformation? And if that's going to happen, how are you going to manage that? Or are you going to have a vendor, a long-time vendor with whom you're going to be cutting relationships? Is that going to be a problem? I mean, and also just, do you need to upskill your current workforce? And if you're a solo operator, that means can you upskill yourself so you can do some of the things you're planning on doing? And if not, what's your strategy? So, you need to get stakeholder buy-in, and that may mean getting employee commitments to undergo more training, or just letting Janet, the admin, know that you're trying to do something that may lead to reduced hours for her. So, or John, the tech guy, saying, hey, look, I want to do something else with this part of my IT, so that may lead to less hours for you. And these are all things you want to discuss, because otherwise your transformation is going to be dead on arrival in many ways. But the most important part of the digital transformation can be the current state audit. As I said, data is the key to successful transformation. To going back to the topic of efficiency and effectiveness, you need to know where you are to know how you can improve your effectiveness, and where you're inefficient so you can be efficient. So, sketch out or write out your processes. I'm a more visual person, so I would be sketching out, okay, what is my customer, what is the steps my customer is going through, what are the steps my admin is going through to do this task, what are the tasks I need to do, and what is happening to get those tasks done. This can also include review the process-related complaints lodged by customers and employees. Gather more data through surveys, identify points of greatest pains, and also, more importantly, don't assume something can't be done or is too hard, because technology's changed a lot, and what might have been can't be done or too hard 5 years ago can be done and fairly easily now, because there are new services and tech are coming out all the time. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, the current state audit also includes something called shadow IT. Now, this is usually a term that's reserved for enterprise, which does have IT departments, but it's actually very, very relevant to small businesses and startups as well, because what shadow IT actually means is that ad hoc usages of IT systems, so using your own personal device, using your own personal Google account to do work-related stuff, can also include end-user files. Like a big example of that is Excel creep. A lot of the time with Excel macros and Excel formulas, you know that if you insert numbers into C5, you'll get a result in F5. But over time, a lot of people forget how the number is calculated in F5. And so, and that is part of shadow IT, because you don't know all the dependent Excels. There's a company called Cluster 7, who is one of the growing suites of software services designed specifically to address shadow IT. And what Cluster 7 does is that it goes into enterprises and say, hey, look, how many Excels are you using to running your business or whatever? And usually some people will say, oh, we only have like 5 files or something. And then Cluster 7 will run their Excels through their system, and oftentimes you find that it's actually hundreds and thousands of little Excels because, you know, they've just been weaved through macros, and the people have copies in their local drive, and it's just it can be like a spider web. Excel creep can be like a spider web, just spreads because nobody checks. Or after a while, nobody checks how the numbers are coming out. They just know that it's working. So as long as it's working, you know, you don't look under the hood. But part of the current state audit is what are the ad hoc things going on, and here's the truth. People are using these ad hoc shadow ITs because they're organizational inefficiencies, right? So your system is so difficult that people find it easier just to use their own devices, or the approved application is so crap that your employees are using something else, and that can be important. And if you are a small business owner or startup, oftentimes you start off using ad hoc IT, but as you're growing, you need to formalize it. You need to go, okay, no, I need to, you know, make these corporate, my business accounts, my business stuff, and this is my personal stuff, and it's just a better way of figuring out where you are, where you want to go. And you know, it's a shadow. One of the biggest drawbacks of shadow IT is security. But it's also about the future, because you don't want to be in a position where employee X walks out the door and they actually take half the important files with them because those files were sitting on their personal laptop. That's, you know, it does happen. I mean, I'm not just making this up as a rhetorical thing. These things have happened, and people have gotten into trouble for that. Businesses have gotten into trouble for that. And also with the current state audit, you always have to be asking yourself, did you capture what's actually happening, or what do you think is happening? So you have to test your assumptions, verify through observation that the process you've captured is actually what's happening. Take notes of any anomalies and outliers. Like, a lot of times what happens is that you've drawn a process and you think this is how it's working, but you keep observing anomalies and outliers, and you think, oh, that's just a deviation for today, or that's a deviation for tomorrow, but those might actually lead you to insights that you wouldn't that you wouldn't otherwise get. So, you know, and anomalies and outliers are also a good way to identify pain points for both consumers and employees. And this is a good time to figure out how to get employee buy-in if you have employees, or even just convince yourself, if you're a solo founder and or a sole trader, that this is something that needs to be done, because again, this is not going to be easy. This is going to take a lot of time, a lot of dedication, digital transformation, and things are going to get worse because you're going to have half broken systems, processes that are half old way, half new way, and the way to persist through that is to know that your current state cannot continue. So yeah, that's so, and the current state audit will also help you prioritize. Now, I want to say that the things I've listed are not in a priority order. Please don't prioritize like this. How you prioritize will depend on your unique situation, but you know, but these are the things that can come out of the current state audit. That you need to upgrade your consumer-facing digital presences, because your website now looks really old and out of whack for the rest of the internet. So people don't trust your website as much because they don't look like every other website that's out there. You may need, you know, additional marketing tools, a new CRM, payment solutions. You may want to look at marketing bots and just a new customer support system. And then one of the biggest reasons why people undergo digital transformation is through to reduce administrative burden. So that might be your top priority. Now, the chatbots in the administrative burdens is internal chatbots, so they're different from customer support systems, which may also include support chatbots. Now, there are a lot of companies, when you have more than one employee training, it becomes an administrative burden and an issue. So a lot of companies have solved that by having internal chatbots where employees can talk to the chatbot to get answers from internal handbooks and things like that. And so ideally it empowers employees to find answers on their own, but it can also chatbots can also be other things. Chatbot technology has increased a lot, so it can help you with a lot of processes, not just customer support and other things. And then there's no coding connectors. So this is things like IFTTT, Zapier, and other things which can connect systems that are not integrated naturally, and it can basically help you improve your processes by being connectors that may currently be done by people. So yeah, and and one of your priorities might just be new revenue sources, moving online, selling your goods and goods more online. Services, a lot of people during the pandemic, even services that they didn't think could be presented virtually, have found a new source of revenue virtually, and they will continue to do it even as things open up, just to increase their reach. So that's always good. And your priority could just be something completely different. Like, you could discover that your biggest pain point for your employees is training. So that's what you do. You make more digital training equipment, training resources available. So so that's the pain point you address. But before we go any further, was there any questions now?
I think we're all good, Dr. Tinney, but very interesting stuff. And I think, we have to keep on transforming to meet, like you were sort of referring to, changing customer expectations, and which are changing all the time. So you can't just stick to how you've always done things. You've got to keep transforming, and there's probably another word you could use, like evolving your business model.
Yeah, you're almost spoiling the end, Paul, but let's keep going. And this is where you come in. So as I said, the next step, once you have your current state analysis, is what do you need to transform? Do you need to draw new operational processes? Are you just replacing elements from the existing processes? So this is where the no code connectors come in, which I will talk about. So it is this screen. It's the no code connectors are things like Zapier. So Zapier is basically that links two services together. So one of the ways I'm using Zapier in SportsMarts, for example, is by managing how the MailChimp list interacts with the HubSpot list and how people are labeled. So we have two, three forms that are taking people in. Some people are just have some inquiries, so they go into one funnel, and some people they have already accepted that SportsMarts is a great thing for their kid, and they just want to sign up, so they go into a different funnel. So Zapier, one of the things Zapier does for us is that it basically acts as a sorter and goes, oh, this person has already bought in, so put them in bucket A. Oh, this person needs more information, is only interested, hasn't reserved their space, hasn't given us money. They will go into column B, and then there's other, so it works as a connector. And Zapier also helps us taking people out from column B and go, okay, they have now made a payment. I can see that. We'll put it in column A, and so that when we go to review what the state of our customers are in our HubSpot CRM, then we already, a lot of things have been done, and we know that the lead status of the customers is current, and we can go from there. And we're also using Zapier to do some payment things, because we are not ready to do the coding thing at the moment. So Zapier is also helping us connect our payment solutions, Square and Stripe, in a way that we can be up and running and scaling the way we want. Now, Zapier is just one of the no-code connectors. It's just the one I use, so that's why I mentioned it. But there are others, including IFTTT, and also these things do work together. Like, you can use Zapier to connect IFTTT and IFTTT to do Zapier stuff. So, but before you can use any of these, you do need the operational map. Otherwise, you're like, well, what am I actually connecting together? And it's real. And the reason I advocate no-code connectors is because it's always, unless you're a big enterprise with a lot of money, it's always better to go off to get off-the-shelf stuff and augment them with no-code connectors where possible. But that said, you may need to hire a developer to write custom scripts and codes. But honestly speaking, if you have a good idea of what you're doing, what you need done, that's actually not as expensive as it used to be, thanks to things like Upwork and Freelancer and other and Airtasker and other little task services like that. So this is actually part of the current state audit, but I thought this was a better place to put this, which is that what is your capabilities? What are the skills do you have internally? And that includes you in a small business solo founder situation. And you need to, and obviously if it's just you don't have to worry about how you're going to collect skill set data. But yeah, if you are but if you have employees, you need to figure out how you're going to get their full skill set. And then you have to figure out, okay, I'm transforming into these new states, and I will be using these new technologies. Do I have the skills to use this new technology? If there is a skills gap, how am I going to close it? Training is always cheaper and better for morale, but sometimes it's not possible, and at which point you have to have a hiring step. And again, this is part of being efficient and effective, because we can often lose touch of what skills we have, and also fail to see gaps that have opened up in our business over time if we're not careful. So I titled this, "Are You Killing the Patient?" And the title is actually from a story a senior engineer told me about how a lot of hospitals became inefficient when they started to transform from their old paper-based systems to new IT-based systems in the late 90s. Because of certain steps, they were certain hospitals. This was in the UK. Had a delay built in for emergency patients coming in, and as a result of this, the digital transformation process of these hospitals were actually killing the patient. So that's why you need your key performance indicators. How are you going to measure them? And have you created a baseline with them? that that you can measure against to see if you're becoming more efficient or effective, or if you're just going backwards. And this is not a process without risk. Do you have you done a risk analysis, and what is going to be your damage mitigation strategy if things go wrong? So we're almost at the end, because the last thing is just create a roadmap. But the most important part is the idea of iteration. Yes, you've executed the plan. How is it going? Is it hitting KPIs? If not, why not? Is there any unforeseen development as you're executing the plan? If it is, what can you learn from it? And then go back and correct what's going wrong, or correct something that's working but not as effectively as possible, and re-strategize like that. And I was saying that we're almost near the end, and so I was saying that Paul ruined the ending at some point, and that's because, yes, the bad news is there's no such thing as life after transformation, because it is about continuous improvement. So in a way, you never really go away from execute, learn, iterate. You just keep going until and you keep up with changing demands and changing customer trends. Yeah, so now we're up to questions. I think we have 10 minutes for that. And yeah, so I am really easy to Google. So if you want to get in touch with me, please do. But I'm also on Josari. I wouldn't be a good CTO if I didn't plug Josari at the end. So yeah, any questions?
Well, while we're waiting, if people want to type in. No, I might have slightly ruined your ending, but I think you put it a lot better than I did. Are there any downsides to automation that you can think of?
Well, the big one is something. Okay, so do you know? Have you? I imagine that all of you guys are familiar with juicy fruits, right? Juicy fruits was a result of industrialization, where the juicy fruit flavor isn't actually a real fruit. That fruit doesn't exist, and it was basically the manufacturers flexing their skills and developing a taste that doesn't exist, completely artificially and completely using artificial means as, hey, look what we can do. And that was something that was big and revolutionary at the time, and that's what people wanted. People were like, well, we have organic real strawberries all the time, wow, this is from a factory, this is amazing. But we have now gone backwards a bit, and now we are all about organic strawberries that grow on small farms and things like that. So and I think is, if I can say, the downsides of automation is that automation will create a different world, and then there will be new movements that grow out of it. So you can have people going, hey, look, this I don't want an automated customer service, which is basically, we already see that, right? A lot of people will complain, advertise that you can speak to a real person as a feature of their automation. So a real person as a feature of their customer service, because people are sick of automated phone services. So yeah, so the downsides of I don't know if this is the downside of automation, because I'm an engineer by background, so I've never really think there's any downside to technology. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that automation is going to lead to different demands, and it may lead to demands that we are not expecting, because and create new industries which actually uses less automation, because that's what their particular customer niche wants. But obviously the biggest downside to automation that a lot of people talk about is job loss. But but can we not retrain these people, or is there just not going to be enough jobs to go around? I think yeah, I'm not sure on that one, but I'm not as convinced as other people that automation is going to lead to the death of employment. So
I think one of the problems with automation. I mean, people love it. We love to go to the ATM rather than stand in a queue. We love to go through the checkout at the supermarket rather than self-serve. I used to work in a petrol station when I was in my teens, and every petrol station had a pump operator like me filling up your car and checking under the bonnet and everything. But people just want in and out, of less patience, I think. But I think even a simple automation that small business can implement is a personalized email, and you can do it through mail merge, for example. So instead of hi, just a reminder that we've got a webinar coming up. It's hi Janice, or hi Shiva, or hi Jasmine. It's, and the reaction you get is like, oh, thanks for the reminder, Paul. And if without that personalization, you don't get the same reaction.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, yeah, automation can make everybody feel seen. And funnily, you mentioned personalization. I know of a startup out of Melbourne. I think they're still going, called Cardly, and they take the personalized automation to the next level, where you will get a physical card from them with handwriting. It's not actually, somebody's not actually picking up a pen and writing it. It's a one of those auto pens, but still, as a consumer, what you're going to get is that from on after the end of a contract, successful end of a contract period, you get a actual physical card saying, hey, thanks, Paul, for having me in this webinar, organizing this webinar. I hope to work with you again. And and that's just it. It's just because we are used to getting emails. What they're disrupting the market by going back to an older model, where you did used to get acknowledgement cards from your partner, from your business partners, saying, hey, a physical card, thank you card. So now they're doing it, but they're doing it through automations, where you can go on a web on their website and fill out a form, or set up your systems to connect to their systems, so you can go, hey, Cardly, please send these 100 customers personalized emails, personalized cards, physical cards with these this name and this message. And yeah, and that just adds a little bit of extra touch that you couldn't really do without technological improvements, at least not cost effectively.
No, I think that's really good. I think I've got their website right in there. I think
Yep.
that Cardly thing is a really good idea, especially, real estate agents use it all the time. But let's say you're a mechanic, and I know we've got one on board this morning. How good would it be to get a little card in the mail from your mechanic saying, your service is due. But you could all look, if you haven't got a lot of clients, you could actually just sit down and write damn cards.
Yeah, and yeah, but it's also one of the other things you can do with automation is also augment your own brain, because we only have so much gray matter and so many things to put in it. So a lot of the a lot of my process automation is just actually just improving my thinking and my planning and my time management, so I can do everything that that needs to be done. So yeah, so there's that aspect of it too. Um,
No worries. Well, look, Dr. Tinney, I think it's been really interesting listening to you this morning, because, you know, I can talk about this sort of topic for about 10 minutes, and I can see you could talk about it uh, for a lot longer. So, look, we might leave it there. I'll circulate the video to the people who are on board, and hopefully we can get you back again sometime, and we can talk about maybe some easy strategies that people can implement in their businesses. And we've got some good comments coming through there too.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. And as I said, please feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Tinney, and thank you everybody for coming along. Bye.